DHL has 32% market share globally and dominates every region except for the Americas, where it only has 16% market share. Here, FedEx dominates, holding 50% of the market share, followed up by UPS. And in 2008, DHL completely exited the US domestic express business. But recently, they have actually re-entered the US market. So how did DHL, the global shipping giant, fail to penetrate the US market in the first place, and will they succeed this time around? Make sure to stick around till the end to find out. Welcome to Hari's Hobbies. So let's start off with some brief history. DHL was actually established a lot later than UPS, but actually earlier than FedEx on September 25th, 1969. It was created by law school students Adrian Dalsey, Larry Hilblom, and Robert Lynn. If you look at the first letter of each of their last names, it spells DHL, and that's where the name came from. They started to provide door-to-door express delivery service, initially transferring documents from San Francisco, California to Honolulu, Hawaii. In just 1 year, they garnered up to 40 clients and started expanding into Guam, Los Angeles, and Portland by 1971. They really focused on expanding internationally, which opened up territories in the Far East and the Pacific Rim. In 1972, DHL International became an official entity as they opened an office in Hong Kong. In that same year, they would open offices in Japan and Singapore, and by 1974, they would be delivering 500,000 shipments per year. They expanded their service around the world by the late 1970s, and they really excelled at providing cheap international shipping. DHL really started specializing in international deliveries through air and sea, as UPS specialized in land deliveries and FedEx specialized in air deliveries. They continued to expand internationally and established more offices around the world throughout the 1980s and 90s. The next big thing they did was in 1999 when they bought 44 Boeing 757s for the European and Asian networks. And in 2000, they launched the world's first global SMS tracking service. Customers could now track DHL shipments through text messages. And in 2002, Deutsche Post increased their stake in the company to 51%, making them a majority stakeholder, and they have been that ever since. In 2003, they would burst into the United States, acquiring the Seattle-based carrier Airborne Inc. for $1 billion. They would spend an additional $5 billion expanding and promoting US operations. So, what went wrong? And the clear, obvious first problem is that there is intense competition as they are entering an established market. They had to fight against the shipping giants UPS and FedEx, who had already become highly efficient and very precise in the US market. And another huge problem to deal with is that most people in the United States didn't even know what DHL was. DHL is huge outside of the United States, but even today, within the US, DHL is not the first thing that comes to mind when you mention shipping. As a result, they had to run huge marketing campaigns that really drained their money in order to get the word out about DHL. FedEx and UPS could completely avoid all of this and really concentrate on making their shipping faster and cheaper. DHL had to put up a lot of upfront capital in order for people to actually ship through DHL. And the thing is, winning the trust of the public is a long, time-intensive process. This made it really hard for them to compete, as it really was an uneven playing field with them having the disadvantage. They hoped that they could be the market disruptors, but clearly it wasn't as easy as they expected it to be. If you're entering a highly concentrated and very efficient market, it would be a good idea to buy a company that had a good presence in the market already. But DHL didn't do this. They decided to buy a low-quality niche player named Airborne, who had a very weak base. This made it very tough for them to expand, as Airborne didn't have good infrastructure already in place. DHL had to invest their own money in order to build new hubs, get new delivery trucks, hire new employees. They were basically building from the ground up. This wasted a lot of their time and money, which should have been spent in thinking of how to compete with FedEx and UPS. If they had acquired a much stronger shipping company right at the very beginning, they would have had a much better chance. This bad entry really wasted a lot of DHL's energy and gave competitors time to really better their own services, and this really ended up hurting DHL. And then, of course, there was the 2008 Economic Recession, which is the final blow to the company. People were shipping items much less often, and online and international orders significantly decreased. This dramatically increased the time period that it would take for DHL USA to simply break even. This substantially increased the financial stress put on the company, and it was just too much for them to continue to absorb. At the start of that year, they had already cut 5,400 employees, and they continued to incur massive losses year after year. Most people expected that DHL would shrink their US operations, but on November 10, 2008, they announced that they would completely withdraw from the US domestic service market. They had been struggling for 5 years and didn't even gain a significant amount of market share, so this was the most logical choice. They would continue to provide international in and out service to the United States, but they had to cut 9,500 jobs, including 3,000 to 4,000 jobs in the United States. They would basically be back to where they were before the Airborne Inc. purchase. The chief executive of DHL Express stated that DHL really struggled as there was overwhelming brand recognition for UPS and Fedex in the United States. They racked up over $1 billion in losses per year over the past 2 years, and this was the clear choice. They had spent $3.9 billion in restructuring, which is $1.9 billion over the $2 billion of expected restructuring costs. If they didn't pull out right then, the whole group of DHL would have had a net loss in the year of 2008. Throughout the whole endeavor, they lost about $10 billion. After their withdrawal, they were able to reduce their US Express unit cost from $5.4 billion per year to $1 billion per year. This was possible by reducing their ground hub units in the United States from 412 to 103. And what's ironic is that this withdrawal actually helped all of the shipping carrier stocks. UPS was up 2.5%, FedEx was up 1.4%, and Dutch Group was up 6.9%. Since then, DHL has been doing well in what they do best, but this has always been a little gripe in their portfolio. And wouldn't you know it, starting a couple of years ago, DHL has started to relaunch in America. They have been offering same-day and next-day delivery services to online retailers in Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles. And since then, they have been rapidly adding more cities every single month. After all, they are the kings of fast, cost-effective delivery, which is exactly what the e-commerce space wants. And they also have a huge opportunity with Amazon as they are growing 35% every single year. And the thing is, UPS and FedEx have told Amazon that they will not be scaling with their needs. And if you look at Amazon's recent activities, they may be teaming up with DHL. DHL's US hub is in Cincinnati, and Amazon's new air hub is in the same city. Analysts don't think that this is a coincidence. They also have Parcel Metro, which is a third-party contract carrier. That business is based off of sourcing third-party drivers who pick up packages from retailers and warehouses and deliver them straight to their households. This really shortens the delivery time, making it really favorable. As you may have noticed, DHL is using a completely different strategy this time around. Last time, they were trying to market and spread the word about DHL to millions of people. But this time, they are targeting the retailers and online e-commerce businesses who need to ship their products out. They are able to capture a lot more business using the same effort. This new strategy, along with efficient, careful spending, has really allowed DHL to go a long way in the US market. Just last year, they delivered about 500 million packages. Now, there's still a long way to go as UPS delivered 750 million packages in just the holiday season of last year, but they are definitely making progress. DHL is one of the biggest shipping carriers in the world, and it is surprising that they haven't made a deep impact on the US market yet. They already failed once miserably in the early 2000s, losing a lot of energy and time. But despite this, they are trying once again. However, this time, they are being a lot more cautious, spending a lot less money, and opting for slow long-term growth. This time, they are investing hundreds of millions of dollars over several years instead of $1 billion right off the bat. And the results are clear. While they are still dwarfed by UPS and FedEx in the United States, they are consistently growing and gaining market share. But with time, this slow, consistent growth can definitely lead to DHL being a large player in the United States market as well. But that's all I have for you guys on DHL. Make sure to comment down below what company you would like me to cover next. Also, if you guys like this video, then make sure to drop a like and consider subscribing if you would like to see more videos just like this one. But until then, I'm Harvey, and I'll see you guys on the next one.